this past weekend. All right. Check. Are we cruising? Okay, we're cruising right there. Let's get going right here. It is Monday, July 17th, and welcome to This Past Weekend. I'm Theo Vaughn. Appreciate you guys joining me. I'm in Orlando, Florida. I know the audio is kind of bad in here. I had to set up shop next to this sink and one of those loud refrigerators. You know, I think a lot of these like mid-level hotels, they put in the refrigerator in the room. It's never keeps anything cold. It basically is just something loud in the corner. It's almost like a pet. It's like having a grandparent, you know, that has dementia, but that has like adult asthma, you know, or that kind of snores a little while they sleep, and that is always, you know, those they're always just it's just too much, man. It's like a rattle. Like the thing always just sort of rattles a little bit, like it'll just kind of click on, even though it's on all the time. Every now and then, the refrigerator just sounds like it just cuts, like like somebody startled it or something, you know, like somebody just tried to shove something up its freezer section. I don't know. I'm in Orlando, man. It's late. I had a long day. I'm about to get into it, but I want to thank you guys for joining me. I hope you had a good weekend. You know, I think a lot of people are still enjoying some of that 4th of July-ness and, you know, a little bit of that aftermath of Labor Day and vacation time. And I went to Disney World, man. I went to Disney World this weekend. That's probably the biggest thing that I did. I was down here at the Orlando Improv, and I went to Disney World. And I don't know if you've been down to Disney, but I have before. I went twice. I went once as a child. My mother saved up some money, I'm sure, and took my brother and I to Disney World. My father didn't go. He was probably 75 at the time, and he stayed at home. And my mom took us, and I only have a few, maybe vague recollections from that, just still images in my head. But I went to Disney World when I was in high school. And we took acid. We took some LSD. Now, this was a time when people were experimenting with drugs, which is all the time in America. You know, if you've ever been around or opened your eyes in America, you'll see people on drugs. And we went there. We took a bus from Louisiana over to Orlando, Florida, here where I am right now. And we stayed in some shit motel. And it was a school-organized trip. And they brought us down, and I remember on the bus, I'd been seeing a gal at the time in high school, and I remember we're making love on the bus. I remember that, you know, getting in the middle of the night. I remember, you know, her, you know, just escalating her body on top of me and making love, and really making that joy, adding more joy to that bus ride than usual bus rides, because I've been on some other bus rides, and I'm happy to talk about those. And I would like to just, while I'm thinking about it, let's make that the topic for next week. If you have been on a wild bus ride, I'm talking Greyhound or a bus adventure of some sort, Peter Pan, you know, one of those troubled bus lines. And if you've had a wild experience, you can hit the hotline and let me know about that. And we'll try to drop some of those in for next week. That number is 985-664-9503. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. So we got down to Orlando, and somebody had some acid. And so we took some acid, you know, a little bit of LSD. And I remember if something was in this LSD, it made everybody look Asian. You know, if the guy who'd gotten it had copped it off of an Asian guy or a Viet or a Cambodian. They call them Cambos, a lot of people. But we had that Vietnamese acid or whatever it was, that Cambo acid. And I remember everybody I looked at looked Asian, you know, and I got thin eyes, so game recognized game. But when I'm on that acid and it just made everybody look Asian. So we came there, and it was like graduation night, and all of my high school buddies, probably about 8 or 9 people on acid, and didn't tell the rest of the class. And we're just running around. It's a Small World. We probably went on that about 9 times. Some kid kept drinking the water out of Pirates of the Caribbean, and he got sick. He drank probably about 2 gallons of it, and he got pretty sick. But we just spent the whole night on acid, running around and doing the different rides and being scared of each other and being scared of ourselves and hiding in the bathroom. And like 6 of us tried to split a hamburger. That's how geeked out we were, and couldn't even do it. Couldn't even eat it. But that was a good time, and that was part of high school, you know. But that was the last time I'd been at Disney World. And that was only one of 2 senior trips. Now, we'd taken another senior trip to Mexico. Mexico, you know, one of the larger countries south of America. And we got down there, and everybody, I remember, bought a bunch of prescription pills and was stealing each other's stuff. I mean, it wasn't but a couple of, probably 9 hours we were down there in Cancun, and half the class, and this was a senior trip in high school, half the class was, hopped up on prescription pills and stealing each other's luggage and selling each other's shit on the streets, and, stealing each other's whatever it was at the time. We didn't have cell phones. We had those calculators, TI-85s, those fancy, U-laters, and we were, those number crunchers, that they do algebra, and we were stealing those and selling them and buying more pills. And I mean, for a group of 17 or 18, 19-year-olds, it only took us about 12 hours to go completely AWOL, and half of us be addicted to painkillers and out there selling each other's goods and different type of textiles and wares. So that got bad, and then everybody's fighting, and half of us were sharing a room, and I remember we were stealing stuff from each other and hiding it in the same room we were in. So that right there will tell you what some prescription pills will do to you. So that's one thing you need to stay off of. But anyhow, that was, and a lot more happened on that trip. But that was some of those high school trips, and one of those was to Disneytown, Florida. And I'm here this weekend in Orlando, Florida. And some lovely ladies, Miss Suzanne and Megan, they just hit me up actually on the hotline. And they said, Theo, we would love to take you to Disney World. And I said, I would love to go. And Jiggy, he's a comedian as well. His name's Jiggy, and he's a white guy. Because you think Jiggy, you think it's more of a urban hip-hop name, Jiggy. But it's not. It's a white Jiggy. And he's a very funny comedian. He tours with the Impractical Jokers, and he's a great guy. No ego on this young man. Really great guy. But he came along with us as well, and he met some little bird the night before she came. So we got a motley crew out there and his friend Giovanna came as well. So we had a great little crew out there at Disney World. We got there early out of the gate. I was up at 8 a.m. Did not want to be awake. Did not want to go see the mouse. But we got there, and it was a great time, man. We got a little bit of sun. You get there and you park, and then you get on the tram, and it seemed a lot more like a theme park than it did like a magical kingdom. That's where we went. We went to Magic Kingdom. But when I was young, I remember even in high school, it seemed like, wow, Disney World, But as an adult now, it seemed a little bit more just like a theme park, like, okay, it's, you go on the rides, you wait in the lines. It's not as, more of the magic was for the youth, I found. But it was very picturesque. They had the castle. I mean, it's 100 degrees. You got the little gerbils out there, chipmunks, Alvin and Simon or whoever they are, and they're out there, just sweating. I mean, you could just see their fur just drenching up at the paws and at the elbows from the sweat. And they didn't even have a lot of, Alice in Wonderland was out there, but she looked like she'd been through some things, like she'd been living in Reno for a little bit. But we got there, and you get on the tram, and they take you right past where the little baby got eaten by the alligator. We fought the alligator. And I used to have dreams a lot of times when I was younger where babies would be fighting animals. And so it's hard for me to say I haven't seen animals and babies fight each other. because I have. I haven't seen it live. I don't even know if you can see that even in Mexico or in maybe Russia. I bet you could probably still see some of that type of, gambling activity and such. But in my dreams, I've seen it often. I remember they had a tournament one time over about a week and a half when I was sleeping, not consecutive sleeping, but in the evenings, resting, catching rest. And I would have these different dreams of different babies and animals in this big tournament and fighting each other and fighting each other off. And then, it kept narrowing down until you had one animal that won. And that animal was I want to say it was a lynx, I believe. Large cat, dark kind of looking, black cat. But not a black cat like you see just on your street or on a side street. A black cat you have to really get into the woods to see, Kind of like the evil black cat in Jungle Book, something like that. But it beat a pretty strong baby in the last kind of dream that I'd had. But anyhow, I'm getting tangential here. But let me tell you this. So you drive right past the place where that baby fought that alligator and lost. And so that's a little crazy out of the gate because you haven't even gotten to the magic. And then they got this, you literally go right over the beach. We've all seen the pictures of the beach and the roped off area where, the alligator just snatched up that baby. And so that's wild because you've just seen that and you get there. And then you get to the park and you go in and you see the Magic Castle. And a friend of mine, one of the friends that went with us, this young lady, Gio, she was telling us that there's a whole underground city there at Disney. And I'm like, wow, this is very much like Vietnam, when you think about it. Because, the Vietnamese, they had these, the Cu Chi tunnels. And if you're not familiar, you can look that up, and that's spelled Cuchi, I think separate words, but the Cu Chi tunnels where the Vietnamese would hide in the ground and then tuck, 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 just poke you out with bamboo spikes up through the ground and surprise you and kill you. And but Disney's not like that. They're trying to show you joy, but they have a whole underground city apparently where the Disney Vietnamese, if you will, are down there. It's just subbing out chipmunks and subbing out, dancing raccoons and wild animals or, Winnie the Pooh, whoever their characters are that are on the lot that day that are, up there rocking, regular ground. They got it where they're subbing each other out and kind of piping each other in and out. So it was just crazy to just even hear that. And then you'd see some of the activity. You'd see like somebody, you'd see like this crazy walrus from the Walrus movie. He'll disappear around a building, and then you'd see another walrus come out, and he'd be like maybe just 2 inches taller. You'd be like, oh, look at that walrus. I know he didn't just grow behind that building. So, it was just interesting to start to see some of the inner workings of it. If you really, as an adult, you're able to take you're not as mesmerized by the childhood enamorations of it all. And you're able to actually see some other stuff that's going on. So I thought that was really, really captivating to me, just to be able to have that experience of seeing Disney from a more adult standpoint. What else did we do there? Saw a lot of male ponytails, and I know that's a Florida thing. And I don't like it. They have the man bun, and honestly, I think the man bun looks kind of handsome, You see some fellas with it. But the male ponytail, it's just gutter, It is gutter. And it really, a lot of men, if they have that, they got issues, This is actually Jiggy calling on my puck. He's calling right now. I got to take it because I got to see if he's going to bring me some food. Hey, bud.
Hey, are you back at the hotel?
Yeah, I'm back at the hotel, man. I'm just doing my podcast right now.
Oh, my bad. I was just going to bring you something to eat. You want like a salad or a sandwich or something?
I'll take a sandwich. Just anything you run across over there will be good.
Fine, man. I'll see you in a few minutes. What's your room number?
My room number is 523.
tree. All right, I'll see you soon. Bud.
Where are you at?
I'm almost back.
Okay, cool, man. I'll see you in a little bit.
All right.
Bye. All right, sorry about that, man. Got me a little sandwich coming. It's midnight here, and we're catching a 7 a.m. flight, but we're gonna leave at 5:15. So it's gonna be that kind of night. What else? So yeah, Disney was wild, man. We had a great time. Went on a few of the rides, and it's the rides aren't to scare you. The rides are to make you feel joy. And it did take me back, some of it, to being a kid, the Haunted Mansion, and just seeing like you. I wasn't really looking at the rides as thinking, well, what does this look like to me, this experience? I was more, as an adult, I was trying to think back. I found myself trying to feel like a child. I found myself trying to like look out at the rides and be like, wow, I wonder what this was like when I was a kid. Or I wonder what a kid would be thinking right now if they saw this. So it's interesting. It's a great place to be a kid, man. It's a great place to kind of reconnect with some of that, or to connect with some of that at all, because it's just built so much, I believe, around the mindset of of wowing children. So anyway, that was fascinating, man. We really had a great time, and I just want to thank the young ladies that took us. One of them's husband is a fireman, and he got us some passes. So thank you, Ryan. I know that's the man's name. He didn't even come. So he lent us his wife for the afternoon. And that was kind to him. So thank you very much. We had a good time. We had a really good time. It was a blast, man. And they had some fast passes. So some of the rides we could, get in the quicker line, and we had a blast. So thank you very much. Outside of that, I went and saw an old friend. I had a friend that I hadn't seen in 20 years that lived here in Orlando, and I went and saw him. And it's interesting to see an old friend, because they have pieces of your life that you forgot. They have different pieces of the story. They have different elements. And we really shared some stories, and I'm going to get into some of those. I'll get into some of those next week, just some more stories from home and stuff. But that was interesting, just to rekindle just kind of that vibe and that environment. And he had a buddy over. They were making a brisket, right? He had a buddy from, I think his friend was from Israel or England. So he had a buddy over making a brisket. And so I get over there. I'm thinking, we'll eat in a little while. I got over there at probably 1. I'm thinking we'll eat probably 2:30. Well, about 3:45, I'm like, damn, dude, I'm hungry, Like, if you invite somebody over for some brisket, you probably need to have some brisket at some point, and I don't mean to get angry, but you need to do what you say you're going to do when it comes to feeding people, because people are hungry, and if they don't eat, they'll die. It's different if I say, come over, I'll lend you a pair of shoes, and I don't. That's fine. You got other shoes. You got skin on your feet. Your body's not going to just fall out of the bottom of your legs. You have skin on your feet that is going to hold your body together. But if you tell somebody to eat, they're going to eat, and they're not. And this guy, nicest guy, but he kept trying to be a fancy chef, He's like, oh, well, I'm going to, I got the meat, and I'm going to sweat it. I'm going to sweat the meat, I'm going to take it off the grill and put it into an ice thing. And then I'm just going to stare at it, I'm going to get in a staring contest with this meat and see who, show it who's boss. And I'm like, dude, I don't give a fuck who's boss. I don't care about this meat's work history. I don't need to see a resume. I want to eat, bro. And finally, after all this shit of just flipping it in the air and fucking, dusting it with, cumin and damn dust powder and smoke. And this guy's like, he kept pulling the fat off of it and injecting it back into it, and like recycled and reused and refurbished, and Jesus Christ, reborn, born again brisket. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, dude? I'm about to, the only place you need to baptize this fucking piece of meat is in my mouth, Brother Bear. And so, man, some of this chefing, though, is just going too far. And you got these friends, it's like, dude, we're here to eat. Like, we've been swimming in a pool, we've been hanging out with the children. Everybody's having a nice time. We got sunburn. Just fucking eat. We're not saving the world out here. So finally I had to get a little fiery, not with the guy really, but just with the overall idea of what was going on, because you invited me here to eat. Guess what, buddy bear? I'm hungry. So let's do it. Oh, but nonetheless, we had a good time. My friend came out to the show with his wife last night, and it was good to catch up with an old friend, man. Pretty good anyway. Sometimes you invite friends and they end up being the loudest one at the show. And I actually had a girl that came out this weekend, and she brought some friend or something. And, this is a gal I'd known from years ago. She brought her best friend and that lady's husband. And they sat and talked in the audience the whole time. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And it always happens. Every time you bring your friends, there's this thing that friends just feel like they're part of the show, And it's not bad sometimes, but sometimes it's bad. But we made the most of it. We made it through. Thank you, Orlando. I had a great weekend, man. I really did. I really, really did. We got some cool calls that hit the hotline. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to go over with you guys. I'm going to drop some quick dates on you right now. And those dates are, I will be in San Diego this Thursday, July 20th. And that is with Sal from Impractical Jokers and Roy Wood Jr. from The Daily Show. And that is at the House of Blues. Then I'll be in Montreal, Canada. Montreal. And that is July 27th through the 30th. I'll be in Texas, Dallas, Texas, at the Addison Improv, August 10th through the 13th. Let's get out to that one. Let's show some love. That's my favorite club. Very excited about that. And then September 6th through the 9th, I will be in Addison, Texas. That's where we are right now. I might add a date in Vancouver. I'm just not sure if people would come out to it. If so, I'll do that next week. We'll see. I'm looking into that right now. But thank you guys for your love and support. You can get the albums right now, 30 Pound Bag of Hamster Bones and Musket Fire. Those are both available on iTunes. And please subscribe to the podcast. We got some new shirts that'll be going up at the end of the week on theovon.com/store. And that's it, man. I love you guys. We had some calls that came in, man. Some neat stuff I wanted to get to. So let's get into it, man. And this is a follow-up. This guy called in. It was a couple weeks late, but I'm guessing he just heard the episode, and he called in talking about America, and then we'll move on to some different stuff. Here we go. All right, hold on.
Hey, Theo. It's Trevor from California. Just heard of your last this past weekend and wanted to give you a quick call.
Thank you for calling, Trevor. Happy to have you calling in from California. Let's hear it.
You were talking about what it means to be an American, and I thought all the callers had great points, and as always, you provided some good feedback too. But on kind of I guess more of like a philosophical side.
And Trevor's talking about, we talked about what it meant to be an American. If it's the first time you've heard this podcast, we talked about it. We had some callers call in, just what it meant after 4th of July, what they felt like it meant onward.
I wonder, what do you think about the counterpoint, I should say, that really nationalism and any sense of I'm an American or I'm a Canadian are names for our separation as humans. It's a different way to label ourselves as something separate from one another. And I can kind of tell, from listening to you all this time that you're more of kind of and maybe I'm wrong, but you seem to be more of like a universal brotherhood, all one type of thinking. So how do you square the fact that, yes, it's good to be proud to be an American, but at the same time, the more you believe, and especially psychologically and philosophically, if you really believe you are an American, that creates a them and us, or us and them sort of dynamic, which then really is the root cause of all war and conflict is...
Yeah, and I'll just pause you right there, Trevor. I appreciate the call, man. And what's funny is I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this since some of the calls and since we went over that topic some. And this is kind of the other side of that coin. Some of our calls and stuff were a little bit not one-sided, but it was those were the people that called. So those are the things that we talked about. But this is another view, and it's a great point that Trevor makes, that if we say that, okay, I'm an American and you're a Canadian and you're an Ethiopian and you're from Siam and you're from Mexico, then by having like pride in our country, are we separating ourselves? Are we not looking at the fact to just say, hey, we're all people and we're all here in this world, but instead we're saying I'm this and you're that. So is having, and I'm not trying to juxtapose your point, Trevor, and I appreciate it, and you said it real clearly, but it's like, is that bad? And it's interesting, man. It's a great point. It's like, right when I heard your call, Trevor, it really made me think. Because I'm like, wow, yeah, like if I'm thinking just, America, then am I like, immediately I'm separating myself from other places. Is it all about people, one love, one everyone. And I believe in the idea of brotherhood. I believe that it would be great if we could all live in conjunction that way. I worry though that first of all, I think that if we're going to be able to do that in the world, then America is going to have to probably lead the way. I don't know if that's true. Maybe everyone just has to lead the way, but I think that we seem to be looked at as a leader a lot of times. And if we don't take care, all right, hold on one second, guys. I got Jiggy coming over to snack. What's up, man?
Yeah.
Pod. You good? What's up, Sarah?
A little grilled fajita flatbread for you.
Ooh, really? Woo, beautiful.
In a few hours, brother.
All right, brother, be good. Y'all be good. Man, beautiful there. Sorry. My boy Jiggy, his lady is still with him. His lady. This little, some little Betty Ruxpin that he met yesterday. And a sweet girl, too. Really cute, named Sarah. Really nice. And they met. And they started holding hands right at the theme park at Disney World today, right out of the gate. And they met yesterday. I don't know when they met. I'm not assuming they slept together or anything like that, but they probably slept close to each other maybe in the same room. I don't know. And I guess I'm putting them on blast now, but but anyhow, they're still together and they were holding hands at the theme park. That's a wild move. Early, like at 9 a.m. We got there at 8:30. So if you start holding hands early in the day, dude, what? Then it's like every time your hands get near each other, you have to hold again because you started that train already. So he's really been caught up. But she's a sweet girl and he's a great dude. Anyhow, but yeah, that's wild, Trevor. It's wild to think about, like by having American pride, are we separating ourselves? And I think that if we don't, that a business that doesn't take inventory usually doesn't last long. And that's kind of where I think we are in America. I think we have the ability to set that example and to be that example and even to lead the world, hopefully, into that one love, universal, everyone environment. But I think it's got to be done steps at a time. Like, I think we need a serious roll call in America of who's here. Because you don't take inventory, you're not going to be in business long. And then what? I mean, if we just open the borders right now, everyone would come here. We're already really destined for an overpopulation problem in America. I think a lot of people would come here, and I think violence would start to happen pretty quick. I like to think that, yes, there's all good in people and that's the way it would end up, that we would all share. Maybe that is the way it would go. But are we going to do that? I don't know if we are. I don't know if we're just going to open and just let everybody in the whole, whoever wants to come into America. And I know it's like you're saying, well, it's not our America. We're just living here. We're just passing through time and this is our land. Yes, I agree with that. We are. But we have to, if we want the best to continue to be possible, then I think we have to, monitor the situation where we're at. And I think where we're at right now is that America needs a roll call. I wish they had a day where they made everybody go out in the street and see who your neighbor is. See who's here. We don't even know who is in America, and I just feel like it's just kind of a scary place to be. I would do some things different to start bringing people back together. We could use a bit of closeness in America, getting people back together before we start inviting everybody into this, greed, money-driven society that we kind of have created. I wish that on Sunday nights, I wish they shut the power out. I remember when the power was out, my family used to spend time together. It was one of the only times that we would spend time together was when the power was out. And there was just something about it. It was just peaceful. Somebody had to light a candle and we had to just be around each other. And we couldn't fight or anything because everybody was a little bit scared, and you get this feeling like you need each other. And I thought I think that'd be interesting if we did that in America. If on Sunday nights, after 5 p.m., no more power, shut it down. So what? You can't do business, you can't do whatever. Oh well, you can be with each other still. You can spend time, you can create some of that love. Because I don't know if we're really, I think if you just let everybody in, I think in a matter of a month you'd have severe civil unrest. You'd have the rich all hiding and be able to hide, and you just have straight up anarchy in the streets, Game of Thrones style. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, look what happens when there's just when there's. I was gonna say, like, look what happens in like a Katrina type environment when people don't have what they need. Things escalate pretty quick. It's not a level of let's be peaceful and figure this out. Things escalate pretty quick, But I love this thought though. It's so true. That's the other side of the coin. It's like, is this our country? Not really. We were just born here. How do we manage that? And that's an effective thought that I wish that I'd like to think about more, because I feel like it's good for me to think about that. So Trevor, I appreciate you calling in and bringing that to my brain, man. Bring it to the forefront of my brain. A little bit more from Trevor. Let's hear a little more.
Is them and us. So just wanted to hear what you had thought about that. To make a huge jump too, and sorry for the long message, but I also do have a couple of odd sauna interaction stories. You mentioned you were looking.
He said sauna interaction. Now, we had people last week. I asked listeners if they wanted to call and share about if they'd ever been hit on by men or women in a sauna, if they'd had some sauna activities, or even actually here. Well, let's just listen to Trevor.
They were looking for where basically guys will kind of hit on you as I think you mentioned when they were sleeping, though, which is kind of a different thing, but I could certainly give you some.
Yeah, because some men be hitting on other men while they sleeping, And I remember falling asleep at this older man's house one time, and I wake up and he trying to be by me, and I didn't really know this man that well, and that was kind of wild. And sometimes if you're in a sauna, somebody is so foggy in there, next thing you know, you turn your head and there is somebody else's right there, or somebody's hip or thigh, or, that soft area behind their knee, or the small of their back is right up under your nose, and things can get surprising. So that kind of stuff happens in saunas.
Give you some of that detail if that was useful. But I wanted to focus on the nationalism piece.
And I appreciate it, Trevor. I appreciate you calling in the nationalism thought. It's great, man. It's a great thought, What if we were just able to look at the world as this is our nation, instead of like, oh, America, the world, humanity. And I think it's a beautiful idea. I don't know if we're in a place right now where we can feasibly rely, like, how do we trust that that's going to occur if we're able to, if you open up the borders, how do you assure people that everybody's just, that if it's a free-for-all, that everybody's just going to be good to one another? I don't know how that ends. I mean, I remember if you look at even like the story in the Bible, and even if you don't believe in the Bible, which is fine if you don't, but if you just look at it as a fable, as a example, they had Cain and Abel, they had Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, 4 people on earth, and one of the brothers killed the other one. Cain killed Abel, I believe. So at one point you had 4 people, and one of them killed another person. That's 4 people. So at one point, you only have 4 people. One of them's a murderer. You know, like, it's risky, bro. That's risky. And that's a buddy of mine, Matt Knutson, has a great joke about that. And that idea is his premise. You can look that up, though. Matt Knutson talks about how one point in time, 25% of the population were murderers, if you believe in the Bible. All right, let's keep it cruising here. What do we have? All right, here we go.
Hey Theo, it's Ethan. Love the podcast.
Hey, Ethan. I like that name, Ethan. Onward. Thank you, Ethan.
Yeah, I'm calling because I'm married for about 4 years to this woman who doesn't really have sex with me anymore.
Wow. That is, it sounds like most marriages, probably. My thoughts, though, honestly, lucky you, dude. Sex sometimes, overrated, bro. Onward.
I recently got in really good shape, super healthy, getting a lot of attention from other girls, and my sex drive has gone up.
Mm-hmm.
But my wife isn't really into it, like maybe once every 3 months, and it's really kind of over and done with fast.
Okay, so his wife only wants him, he said, about once every 3 months. Okay, so I can imagine that's probably got to not make you feel very good, you know, or at least it's got to really diminish the returns on you guys' love there, probably, if she doesn't even feel attracted to you. Onward.
So I kind of was lacking, so I resorted to trying to find someone outside of the relationship to fulfill that need. Anyways, I met this girl, we started talking, and like right from the get-go, it was fucking amazing. She's incredible. Every message was perfect. There was so much momentum. It was effortless. It was awesome. So that's been going on for like 5 weeks now.
Okay, so you got your dinner at the house and you been looking at the candy. That's what that sounds like. Let's hear a little bit more.
I met this girl twice. We never had sex, but that's kind of the whole intent behind it. But now this girl means so much to me that I don't know what to do.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop you there for just a second or pause you. So you met this girl twice. You've been texting a lot. You met her twice. There's the intent for sex. Hasn't happened yet. And you're saying you care about her so much. And that sounds confusing to me. I mean, I understand that it can feel real to you, but it sounds from an outsider's perspective, which you're trying to get here, I assume, that that it can't be that you care about her so much. Because care, I would feel like, takes more time to actually establish itself. So there's probably a strong bit of infatuation, unless you feel so uncared for by your wife that that any care at all here is really fulfilling that so much that it feels like a ton of care, or it actually feels like care and not infatuation. Onward.
And I know it's probably common that a dude just finds another girl and falls in love with her for whatever reason because of what's lacking in his life. But I actually addressed the whole sex thing with my wife recently, and she confirmed that she's just not really into it. Had a panic attack a couple nights ago thinking about it. Again, woke up in the middle of the night vomiting from anxiety, just because I feel like I'm floating in an emptiness between two people who want me for different reasons, and no one actually wants me for who I am as a whole.
Wow. I mean, we just went through like an emotional Star Wars right there. So you got anxiety from what's going on here. You talked to your wife about it. I'm assuming you talked to her about the sex part and not about the part that you have, this little kitty on the side. You trying to pet this side kitty, and I've been out there. Look, man, I've had trouble in relationships in the past if I don't get in them. Commitment issues, and you start getting confused in your feelings. You want to touch that side kitty. When you want to, you might be even sitting in the living room with your family, but you reaching your hand out back the window and you petting yard animals. You feel me? You reaching for them soft, wet yard animals. And that can happen, man. And it sounds like you're starting to look for that. Because if you have this in this woman, then you're starting to feel that. You've talked to your wife. Now you're having anxiety. You're vomiting in the night. I mean, that could be. I mean, you know what if you eat a lot of times peanut butter and jelly, having that before you go to bed can really make you vomit. But especially if it's on raisin bread, because a lot of raisins in raisin bread can be rotten. I don't know if you guys knew that. A friend of mine just told me that recently. Anyhow, dude, it sounds like you. Let's listen to the rest of this. Onward.
And this other girl kind of fell for me really hard, and I did for her, and I think it threatened our own situations. So we're figuring that out, but I'm just really afraid she's gonna ditch me. I just want to keep her in my life in some way, even if we're not having sex. But just wondering if you had any advice on how I can handle this. I have no idea. Tried everything. Don't know what to do.
Okay, man. I appreciate you calling. I do want to say that, man. First and foremost, I appreciate you calling. You like this girl, it sounds like, the side kitty. You found some love or excitement, you know. And maybe that's missing from your relationship, and that's why it feels so grandiose. I think you got to ask yourself, do you love your wife, and do you want to be with your wife? You know, if not, and to me from this call, I'm not trying to give you advice, but it sounds like you're not getting what you need there. And at a certain point, there's a couple solutions or a couple of directions. You can try to get some therapy for you and her together. You can try to get some therapy for yourself, you know, because are you trying to solve the problem with your wife, or are you trying to cure the issue with your wife by reaching outside of your marriage? That's kind of the deal, you know. And I would think about it in the way, try and treat your wife the way that you would want to be treated. So say the roles are reversed and your wife has the same, you know, you're not sexually attracted to her and she's having these thoughts and feelings and she's talking to somebody else. How would you best like it and be understanding for her to deal with you? And then that's the way I would go at it and deal with her. Because you're not going to be able to keep somebody around. You asked, how do I keep this woman around on the side? You're not going to be able to do that just as a friend, you know, because you'll end up banging them. You know, you will end up banging them or, you know, laying next to them and jerking off or something or doing something, you know, just letting, you know, your innards start to really express themselves, you know, let your dick stand up. You know, so you got to keep that in your head, man. You know, if you hang out with wool, you're going to lay your head on it. That's what they say. You know, that's what they say, man. They say the man that sleeps with sheeps skeets with sheeps. So remember that, man. Keep that in your head. If you hang out with the wool, you're going to lay your head on it. Rarely do you see a man walking around with a pillow and then come nighttime, he just set the pillow in a briefcase or something. No. But it sounds like infatuation, man. It sounds like you should either try to work things out with your wife or just leave her, man. Maybe, you know, realistically, you probably are not in love with your wife. It doesn't sound like you are in love with your wife. It sounds like you were at one time, but I don't know if that is that time anymore, you know? And you know, you talked for a second about taking care of your body, but are you taking care only of the outside? That's what I'm a little bit worried about, you know? So I'd look inside and really ask yourself some questions. And that anxiety, that vomit, like the only thing that can be coming from is your actions are probably, you know, stirring up inside of you and making your body and your spirit all squirrely. Because if you're just talking to your wife about the sex part, but then you're using that conversation to go then and justify your actions, you know, it's probably not the coolest way to go about shit. You know, I mean, you can cheat on your wife. You can go out and sleep around and see if that works. See if maybe that's the thing you need to do that's going to help you figure out what do you need to do. You know, if you need to stay with your wife or if you need to go on or, but it sounds like you need to figure out that this doesn't have anything to do with your wife. I think this has to do with you. So I would start there, decide what you want and then take the actions to make the changes. You can do it, bro. If you need to, you can do it, you know? But yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard. It's hard to be in a relationship these days. And I think a lot of men, honestly, are not even looking really for lovers in relationships these days. I think a lot of men are looking for mothers. And I base that on the fact that I think the recent generation of men has grown up in a time when they didn't have mothers. A lot of their mothers were working. And so they didn't have the same mothership that our grandparents had, or that our parents had. So whereas our parents might have been looking for sexual mates, that I think the men now are looking for something a little bit more along the motherly lines. And maybe you're not one of those men. Maybe you're a man that's just looking for that. You have to have that sex, and you have to have the sex in your relationship. I know you have to have it. And some people, it might only be a few months, because as you stay married, some people just become really good friends, and sex isn't that important to them. But if you're probably, getting back into your body and taking care of yourself, then yeah, you might be, revving up that sex dragon. You might be feeding matches to that sex dragon, and then he's gonna spray out, and he's gonna start talking fire, and that's how your libido is getting lit up. And you switching from a 87 to a 91 octane. So you starting to run on diesel, boy, and that's what it is. I think is that you're invigorated, and you want that action again, and maybe your wife is just not full circle there. So the options are you go out and cheat, or you let your wife know what's really going on, and you stay out, and then that way you can go out and at least be with another woman, but have a clean heart about it, But good luck, man. Let us know how it goes, if you will. Why don't you hit the hotline back and let us know how it goes. And Trevor too, that called in a little bit ago. I'd love you to call back and let us know about what happened in those saunas when those men was being wild. Because I've been in there, boy, and it's gorillas in the mist in there. You think it's your towel and it's another man. Well, sometimes if he has long hair, he'll put his hair right by your hand, and you reach over to you think it's your towel, but it's his hair that he's laid out flat on the stone in there in the sauna, and then you grab his hair, and next thing you know, you pull him over by you, and you think you're just trying to get a towel to just wipe off. So a lot of trickery and miscreancy going on out there. The Disney Vietnamese. I like that. All right, let's keep it moving here, man. Let's hit another question right here. Let's hear it.
Hey, Theo. This is Derek. I'm from Hilo, Hawaii.
Ooh, Derek from Hilo, Hawaii. Pineapple country, huh? What's up, you little napple? They call them napples out there. People that live in Hawaii. Onward.
And I was just listening to your last podcast, and you got talking about how you might just cut off your balls. You might cut off your dick, and you feel like you get nothing done because of that. And I had to stop the podcast right there and call you, because that is crazy, man. You can't think you would do nothing.
Now, he's referring, I thought many times that my penis and my junk, nuts, and whatever else is in your nut sack. They say nuts, but it feels like, honestly, there's more in there. And I've thought for a long time that if I didn't have my penis and nuts, that I could function better, that I would get more work done, because I think we're starting to become, and I believe that, Richard, and I said that I would mail them, or Derek, sorry, I said that I would mail them to Africa or to a different country, not Africa, or Africa or a different country. And because that would be a meal. You can easily feed a family of 3 or 4 with the meat that is inside of your cock and your scrotum. And I'm not trying to be disgusting, but that's real. In America, we cut off body parts like it's nothing. Somebody gets a little bit of gangrene, they lop their leg off. But whereas you don't realize is that in India, that'll feed a fucking farmer. That'll feed a farmer's family. That'll feed a farmer's family for filling their falafels. Which this is starting to sound like that'll feed a farmer's family for filling their falafels. This is starting to sound like a tongue twister. That'll feed a farmer's family for filling their falafels. That'll feed a farmer's family for filling their falafels. Yeah, it's pretty fun one and an easy one. I think you could kind of a starter tongue twister. But yeah, I think you could cut it off and mail it, Derek. And I don't see a problem with that. I don't see a problem with providing, some light food or light fare to some others who are in need. And if I don't want my penis and I don't want my nuts anymore. But let's hear the rest.
You would get nothing done without your balls and dick. Your motivating factor for life would be over. What would be the reason to live? What would be the reason to live?
Okay. I'll answer that for you. The reason to live then would be, I think we're starting to metastasize as humans. We're starting to morph some. Where, yes, it used to be that to procreate was our main necessity. But is it still? We have a lot of people in the world. We are at a level, especially in America, of pretty high comfort. We are pretty comfortable. Even if we're, I feel like, wealthy or poor, we are at least, you can be just lazy and, collect money or get your money, and you can still be comfortable. You can still have a bed and air conditioning and a phone and cable, and you can have food and you can be comfortable. So at that point, are we really looking to procreate as much as we are just looking to enjoy our comforts? I almost feel like, sadly, in this country, that's one of the infestations that we have, is that we're just too comfortable. And we're starting to, as humans in America, we're starting to metastasize, or we're starting to evolve into creatures that it's just like, what's the best way we can enjoy our comfort, or the best way that we can work harder, or the best way that we can, but not work harder like in the sense that I need to be in the wild hunting boars or hunting, violent squirrels or flocks of squirrels or gangs of squirrels. But in the sense that I need to be doing, computer work or podcasting or, stuff that I don't even need my dick and nuts for. Stuff that I need just my brain and just my ideas for. So I feel like that's where we're at a little bit. So if I didn't have this hindrance of meat between my legs, this meal, and I say meal because I got a decent dick, I got some swell cock for a man. And if I'm just carrying it around, and somebody else in another country this could be a feast for them, a small feast, but a feast for maybe at least a beautiful Valentine's dinner or something if somebody wants to enjoy themselves with their friend or lover. But, then that's me being greedy. And if my penis wasn't always taking my thoughts, because I'll start getting some good ideas and doing work, and my penis is like, hey, don't you want to, go see if there's some cooter across the street? Oh, what if there's some cooter downstairs? Huh? Have you thought about that recently? Yeah, my penis starts telling me all that. It's cooter hungry. And it'd be nice sometimes to stop that hunger, to satisfy it and just to eliminate it. So then I could just stay in my realm of work and what I feel like would be to do my best work and to focus more on the things that help me feel good about myself, like caring about others, loving my friends and family, and trying to be of service. Those things are what really make me feel good. So I don't know, man. It's interesting, but I feel like getting rid of it, that's what it would do, man. It would really lift me up as a man, as a person. I really do. What else do we have here? You know what? I got a couple of other good calls, but I'm going to hit them next week, man. Just because it's getting late. It's 12:45 here. And I know some of you guys are like, well, what, dude, what, we listening? What? Well, I'm sorry, man. I love you. I'm doing the best that I can. I am actually looking forward to hopefully getting some new studio environment in Los Angeles this week. So hopefully that will come to fruition. But I'm really excited about it. But I appreciate the calls, man, and I thank you for the calls. And again, I really thank you. I appreciate people that are calling in and sharing what's going on in their lives. And I don't have any answers. All I have are some suggestions and what I can share with you. But that's it, man. Coming to you from Orlando. I didn't have any intro or outro music this week. I'll get back to it, I promise. But you can hit the hotline. And if you have any other thoughts on anything that we talked about or brought up, please share them. My number is 985-664-9503. And it's up to 3 minutes. You can talk on there. And if you don't get it all in, then call back. But try to get it all in 3 minutes. You know what I'm saying? But I did get some other great calls. I'm going to use them. I'm just not going to be able to use them on this episode. But thank you guys so much. Have a great week. It's July, you know? It's summer. It's hot as hell, dude. It's hot as hell. So get in the pool, you know, spray some water on your friend. Bring a water bottle. Squirt somebody. You know what I'm saying? Brush your teeth, though. Brush your teeth. Hug somebody. Won't you do that? Won't you surprise somebody today and hug them? Hug them, motherfucker. You feel me? Hug them, motherfucker. That's what I would love to see, these gangs. I get tired of watch the news in New Orleans and I see these people showing up just beating each other. And I would love to see some, you know, two gangbangers just show up and just hug the fuck out of somebody. Like, damn, motherfucker, you just got hugged. You know? Damn, you feel that joy? Motherfucker. But sorry about the profanity. Be good to yourselves, man. I bet you deserve it. And if you need me, reach out. I love you. Talk to you guys next week. This has been This Past Weekend.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Kite, and welcome to Kite Club, a podcast where I'll be sharing thoughts on things like current events, stand-up stories, and 7 ways to pleasure your partner. The answer may shock you. Sometimes I'll interview my friends. Sometimes I won't. And as always, I'll be joined by the voices in my head.
You have 3 new voice messages.
A lot of people are talking about Kite Club. I've been talking about Kite Club for so long, longer than anybody else. So great.
Hey, sweetheart, here's the deal. Anyone who doesn't listen to Kite Club is a dodgy bloody wanker. Do you know what I mean?
Hi, I'll take a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry.
Sorry, sir, but our ice cream machine is broken.
No!
I think Tom Hanks just butt-dialed me. Anyway, first rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Second rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Third rule, like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube, yeah? And yes, don't worry, my Brad Pitt impression will get better.
This Past Weekend. Okay, we got the audio going. Cutting this on. Just took my Afrin, so hopefully that's gonna help me breathe. Happy to be here. A little frustrating. I'm trying to quit smoking. Thank you for joining me, man. And I haven't been a smoker, but I just kind of started, you know, really just kind of farting around with the habit. And cigarettes are crazy. I don't know what they put in cigarettes, cocaine maybe, but they are an enticing little treat, you know. And you start thinking, they become the first thing you think of sometimes, cigarettes. You know, they become the first thing that you think of if you're having a moment of difficulty or a moment of triumph. Instead of thinking, oh man, how do I solve this? How do I feel about this? How do I do anything? Instead, you have a cigarette. You know, you just smoke that feeling out of your brain and out of your bloodstream with that cigarette smoke, you know? And this is an age-old tradition, and I don't think it's bad long-term if you can use it in severe moderation. The problem is doing that. That's the hard thing. So I've done great with it over the years, flared up probably in the past year, the past few months I've been great. And then now it's really, I've fallen just in the past 3 or 4 days, just fell back down that stairs. that carcinogen staircase, when you just banging your head and on each stair as you bounce down, emphysema, asthma, the black lung pop, getting your toes cut off. And the next thing you know, you're lying at the bottom of the staircase, you breathing through one of those, those gangster ass throat holes, I mean, some of those throat holes get big. I've seen somebody I'm surprised a couple Ninja Turtles didn't pop out of it. This fella had a real little, almost like a big third nostril. He could take a hit off the whole world through his neck. But it's not healthy, when you have that. That kind of stuff isn't healthy. But so today I've gone all day. I've had some cravings, I mean, if you'd have told me there was a hit of nicotine in my bloodstream, I would have dressed up like a vampire and damn bit myself. Okay, that's where I was at. But welcome, guys. I appreciate you being here with me this morning. I really do. Appreciate your time. This is Monday, August 21st, 2017. And as far as we know, and for most of us, this will be the only Monday, August 21st, 2017 that we ever have. Unless there are some time travelers out there. And, I like to start thinking about time travel, and I'm going to look into it. I'm going to do some Google research and then some real research, and just talk to friends and see maybe what they think about time travel. Are there time travelers here? How does that work? What's going on? What do they eat? What do they do? What do they do in their spare time? A lot of times you see these time traveling shows, and people travel to time. They travel through time with a poignant purpose. They got something on their mind. They got a little bit of beef. They got that they have to grill, but in a different time period. So you got them straight up people traveling, just trying to cure meats. And by meats I mean different issues that are going on. Maybe they got to travel back 100 years because they're helping with prohibition, or they got to travel back 70 years because they're helping. Somebody took a gunshot wound and they got to step in the way of it or something. There's always a specific meat that they're heading back to grill, if you will. That's all metaphorical, the type of thing. There's a specific reason that they're traveling back in time, right? Well, I wonder, what do time travelers do when they're not being specific? What do they do when they're just kind of milling around? Do they, is it hard if you travel back in time because you don't have the customs and probably the dope future shit, the DFS that they have down the road? I don't know. But anyhow, you might be able to time travel today because it's eclipse day. People have been talking about it. Right, it is a solar eclipse, and one of the things that's apparently amazing about this one is that this one is the best one since 1918 that you can see here in the United States. It's basically diagonal across the United States from Portland down, I want to say, to Florida, but that's just me taking the easiest way out of this question or out of this thought. But it's diagonal across the U.S. There's a lot of people apparently have descended upon Portland to see stuff go dark, And it's interesting, man, since 1918, and my father actually, so some of you guys know my father was born in 1910, so my father was 8 years old. I don't know if he saw the eclipse or not, if it was as big of a thing to them. But it's just interesting to think sometimes, like what your parents were doing when they were children. I always put my parents, or I always put adults, especially as you grow up, on this odd pedestal, on this special place. I mean, surely they have more knowledge, so you'll most of the time you'll accept that. But then you also put them in this other sort of realm of humanity and of experience. But then as you get older, it's interesting to try and think back what they were like as children. I mean, I think about my father in 1918, maybe standing out there looking at the eclipse down in Nicaragua. I don't know if they got it, I don't think he came to America actually till he was 12 years old. But I do remember my dad telling me one time that two of his buddies, or two children in his neighborhood, got into a gunfight. Children, okay? Children got into a gunfight. And they went and it wasn't like gangbangers type of stuff. This was Some kid said, I'm going to get my gun. Some kid said, I'm going to get my daddy's gun. And they both went and got guns, 6 shooters. Then they came outside and they both shot at each other 6 times each, 12 times, and didn't hit each other, dude. That's, when you think about it, that is remarkable. That 2 kids, somewhere around the age of 10 or 11 years old or 12 years old, went and got 6 shooters, shot them off at each other, and didn't hit each other, man. That's truly beautiful when you think about it. But those were different times, man. That's maybe when you settled things like that, But it's the longest visible eclipse in America since 1918. I wonder if animals and plants, are they concerned? Like when the sun goes out, are dogs will cats give a fuck? Will ferns kind of start creeping on people or, getting irie? I'm just kind of wondering what else the rest of nature is doing. Because we have 50,000 people flying to Oregon to go witness this. I think I'm fine witnessing it from here. It'll hit us at 10:28 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's noon 28 a.m., noon 28 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you want to get out there and check it out, man. But yeah, I think about that sometimes, what our parents were like what they did when they were young, because they just did regular dumb kid shit like we did, Like they weren't our parents back then. They were just children when they were young. So they were just doing dumb shit, And my father probably lived in a time, I'm thinking, when over the summer or whatever, your buddies just died, And even a lot of times, like the 30s and stuff, the Dust Bowl, 20, people just died. You're like, people only lived to maybe 40 years old, 41? People died all the time, You'd be walking to church or something, somebody gets bit by a snake, dies, dude, before brunch. That's crazy, It's crazy to think that. How people just died all the time. Fever, snakes, spiders, attack animals, strangling. Strangling? Dude, come on. Can you even imagine the amount of strangling that was going on back then? You could leave for a school year, come back, half your class is missing. 2 people died of tetanus, 1 kid bitten by a wolf. Where's Lawrence? I don't know. He went to get some water, nobody ever saw him again. Do you want some of his old pants? I don't know. Let's play marbles before we probably die. Let's get a game of marbles in before the Lord comes and gets us. That's what I'm thinking. It probably should be a wild universe back then, But the eclipse is here, man. It's a great time probably to steal some shit if you're thinking about stealing some shit. Great time to show somebody your dick or something, if you're into that kind of stuff, if you're into the dark arts. But it's a great time to kind of act out, I think. And I think it's nice also because we've been needing something in America that, especially in America, maybe in the world, that just shows us that Mother Nature is the boss. We're kind of hooked on us being the boss. We control it all. We're one fancy tidal wave from everybody, being out on the street, shanking each other out for cans of albacore fish. We are one long, thunderous earthquake away from people, setting traps in the park to try and get a pair of new shorts. That's where we're at. People don't realize that. I think we've gotten so caught up in ourselves, we're almost bored in America, in the way that we're starting to forget that we're humans in a way. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. We're starting to forget that we're humans. Like being human doesn't seem as important as like being right or being wrong or being selfish. Those things seem to have taken utmost importance. But I don't know, man. It's just wild, dude. So I'm glad that Mother Nature's coming just to do a little bit of aerial work, a little bit of Cirque du Soleil, get out there and show her nuts off. Because Mother Nature's transgender, don't you know? Don't you know that? Mother Nature's transgender, dude. She's getting out there with them solar balls, and going to make them work. Make them do a little bit of sky work. So I'm excited to see that. because we need something. We need something just to show us, that we as people are more important. We need to have some empathy. There's not a lot of empathy these days. Everybody wants to be right. Why do we have to be right? That's so crazy. I can understand us wanting to be right, but having to be right is just a kind of a reach. But anyhow, what else is going on, man? Yeah, I was just thinking about that. What it was like when my father was young. He told me kids were real starving out in Nicaragua, and they would eat dirt. He said they had children that would eat dirt in this village where his family was doing some missionary work over there, or where they were doing some church work, and he'd see children eating dirt, but they would mold the dirt into food and then eat it, and that's pretty. It's interesting, it's kind of that's pretty gangster, It's like, yeah, anybody could just eat dirt, dude. But what about this dirt brulee I'm about to have? I respect people like that, people that have an imagination even in the toughest of times. Yeah, I hate to say that, but I mean, maybe that's wild, but I feel like we need something in Mother Nature or in the world. And I don't want to, I've thought about a war even, to be honest, I mean, I don't want to see loss of life and that sort of thing, but we need something that helps us all realize that we are on the same page, that we are humans here together. I mean, it's crazy to think that we are this speck in the middle of nowhere and we're fighting. I mean, are we, what's wrong with us? That we're a speck in the middle of nowhere. We could be doing anything, and we're fighting, man. And we're not all fighting, but these days in America, there's a lot of boiling going on. A lot of people boiling. A lot of people, thinking, feeling. And I'll say one thing that's interesting, man. It's great almost. I like the fact that even though it's frustrating when I wake up or when I hear, I feel. I care. I have a point of view. Because for a long time, my generation, I'm 37 years, I'm an adult male. And for my generation, there was a 20-year span there where there was no, you got up, you didn't really care. Everybody just kind of went on with everything. There was no sides. There was no purpose. There was no vigor. You almost didn't even need your nutsack. I remember at the time, I remember thinking, do I even, I wish my nuts were detachable. I'd leave them here at the house. I'd hang them by that one winter hat that I wear once a year. Or that whistle. Everybody has a frickin' whistle on their dang coat rack. What are you doing with a stupid whistle? That creeps me out. When I go to your place and if you got a hat rack, I'll look at it. I've always been a kind of an aficionado of hat racks and C-racks, coat racks. And I will, if you got a whistle hanging there, dude, but you're not a referee or something, shut it down. Shut it down, baby bear. But I'm excited. I am hopeful because now people are feeling there's purpose. People want to say something. People want to feel something. I get up out of bed and I feel. Might be anger, but at least I'm feeling. At least I'm being reminded that I'm alive, Because we're quickly, in other ways, turning into zombies. And I feel like maybe I don't want it to be, I'd love a natural disaster of some crazy sort. It might sound, it sounds a little crazy saying it. But if not, do we just taper off into oblivion with losing our feelings and becoming, just we're going to be the worst robots. We'll be eliminated and real robots will take over. I remember talking to my niece the other day. I'm talking about imagination. I said, use your imagination. And she goes, I don't think I have that on my phone. Like, what? I said, your imagination, it's an app that's in your head. But now it's like, man. So I just would love to be, because if you're in the trenches, if there's something on the line, if there's a war, there's a natural disaster, if the alien's coming, then you're going to have to team up with some. It's not going to matter, because then we're all going to be on the same side. We're going to realize that we're all humans. We're not just weirdos hiding behind Twitter, threatening each other and fighting. And I use Twitter, but GD, man, let's shut it down. That thing is ruining humanity. It's ruining it. It's just fury. I open Instagram. I'm kind of okay on Instagram. I feel, it's fun. You can see things, funny stuff. Twitter, ruins. It ruins, doesn't it? It's pretty interesting how different apps have almost become where we go to express certain feelings, But yeah, my niece thought imagination was an app. I don't think I have that on this phone. Using her mother's phone, my sister. Oh, what else? Jerry Lewis died. Rest in peace, Mr. Lewis. If you're not familiar with Jerry Lewis, which a lot of people aren't, a lot of younger people are not familiar with Jerry Lewis, and that's okay. He was older. I mean, the guy was in his 90s. I think I want to say 91 years old. And that's old, man. When you're 91, I mean, you probably have you'll take your shirt off and I bet there's kind of a dust or something in it. That's part of you. But visible always on you. Whatever, like you see old people with their ears a lot of times, just overgrown ears, like a family used to live in their ears and then their ears became haunted and now they're not taking care of the yard anymore because the family moved out, I mean, sometimes you see old people have hair. I remember this one dude had a hair coming right off his nose, man, and it was probably 4 inches long. I mean, it was almost like like a cane pole. Like it just was trying to catch fish out of his mouth. I mean, this man had the longest nose hair I'd ever seen, And part of me often wonders if at night, after he brushed his teeth, he might pull that fine sucker down and floss his little beautiful little chest pieces in his mouth, Floss those beautiful enamel pawns he's got. But yeah, when you get older, sometimes you don't know what's going on. They had a man in our neighborhood. He had a big hump on his back. This man named Big Dan, but they called him Moby Dan because of the hump. He real pale. It kept him out of the sun, and then his cousin would walk around usually, and his cousin was probably maybe 20 years younger, but his cousin would kind of they didn't have an umbrella, but he'd put like a tarp over him if he had to be outside, And Moby Dan, that's just what the kids kind of joked and called him, but he had this big old hump, and it just kept growing. And it got almost higher than his head, dude. I mean, if a bunch of pirates would have seen him, they probably would have damn thrown harpoons in him. He's big, too, fat, blubbery. Rubenesque, they called it at the time, Pretty happy man, though, overall. I remember that. But I know that if it was real bright out and he had to be outdoors, or if he was at a picnic, whatever, his cousin would kind of throw a tarp over him to keep the sun off of him. And I always thought that was pretty sentimental, when somebody in your family cared enough to cover you up with a tarp or to, hold something over your head so that the sun or the elements didn't get you. I wish people in our neighborhood would have done that with their cars and stuff. A lot of rust, and I grew up really not in the rust belt, in the tetanus belt, where you needed a shot if you were planning on getting out and about into the world. That. But Jerry Lewis died, man. If you want to go back and watch some of his work, go watch the original Nutty Professor. And you can see at the time, I mean, Jerry Lewis they don't have artists like him anymore. They don't really allow you to function at that level of confidence. Very rarely. Like you'll see like a Neil Patrick Harris can do that when he's hosting like the Tony Awards or something where he's singing, he's dancing, he's telling jokes. It's one to the next. But Jerry Lewis was like that constantly. And I think directors and programming on television used to allow the actors to move and breathe. Every shot wasn't just such a close-up and, okay, this line and now this line and this line and this line. And the actors had chances to be more whimsical. Even on late night shows, the talent had chances, I feel like, to be more whimsical. And he was as whimsical as they came, Jerry Lewis. I mean, you can watch him almost at any age. And it was extremely impressive, and I just wish that talent these days had that freedom. These days it's almost like the art caters. We got to get the episode moving so that it can get to the commercial break so that, we'll keep the commercials happy. Whereas if you look at older stuff and older pictures, it looked like it was more just like the whole whatever the production was, the show, the film, it could breathe a little bit. And maybe that was just Jerry Lewis. Maybe it was just Jerry Lewis who they let him breathe because he had that. They could rely on him that much. He had that much talent. But a very special man. Go check him out. What else happened this weekend, man? I went to the beach. Went to the beach out here in Santa Monica. I took a nap in the sunshine. Have you ever done that? Feels great when you start. Feels insane when you wake up. When you get home. Part of your face, part of your body, half of your neck, half of your cheek. And I was out there at Santa Monica where I was at the beach by the pier. And I'll tell you this, man, you get out in the water out there. I went out for a swim. Not the best idea. Swimming by the pier. I didn't know that a lot of sewage runoff goes out there, right? First of all. So I kept thinking this water's sandy, right? There was sand in it for sure. Who knows what else was in it, man? And you're out there, and that's a violent ocean. They call it the Pacific, but I'll tell you this. That's a bait and switch on you. Because you get out there in that Pacific, and that thing is doing anything but acting pacified. All right, I'll say that. I was right by the pier, and I remember I got pushed out a little. I'm out there kind of surviving, because I don't swim as much as I kind of survive in the water. That's more how I, operate in the ocean. Not in pools. In pools, I can kind of handle myself. Shallow end, I'm a master of the shallow end. I'm Daniel Day-Lewis in the shallow end. My left foot, my right foot. I will drink your milkshake. You know what I'm saying? I'll do it all in the shallow end. I'm a fucking, I'm damn, Tanya Harding, damn, Garibaldi or whoever, somebody that can dance. Jillian Huff. But I'll handle the shallow end. But when I get in the deep end, that's when things get squirrely for me and in the ocean. So I'm out there. I'm kind of starting to drift a little bit. It's getting violent. The water's getting violent, And there's a lot of alcoholics out there. And there's two fellows pissing off the dock. Because that Santa Monica Pier is right there. The one you see in all the movies with the Ferris wheel and kids are all geeked up and fired up. So I start drifting off into this area where you're not even allowed to swim in. For some reason, I don't know why. I mean, I'm guessing because the ocean can push you up against the wooden parts of the pier. The things that are holding you up. They're just like big brown chopsticks. I don't know what they are. They're pieces of wood. You know what they are. Quit making me describe them. But yeah, I got pushed in. These two dudes are pissing right off of it. Alcoholics. I'm guessing alcoholics because everybody else is hanging out with their children and tending, to their kids and keeping sun out of each other's eyes. And these men are out there urinating. Firing off things that they drinking previously the day before today and dripping that out of their wieners out into the water. And I'm getting spooked because I'm like getting pushed in that general direction, right? And then it gets closer and closer and it's like, sometimes the ocean, you don't realize how powerful it is. So I literally have to like go underwater and swim under this, this urine that these boys are doing. And that's one of those moments, too, where you just realize that, that Mother Nature's in control, that life isn't always going to go how you want it, So that was kind of like, if I don't see the solar eclipse tomorrow, having to hold my breath and swim under water that had other men's urine in it coming straight down. Just straight down, I mean, it was probably, the water I was hitting was probably at that point 4% urine. But when it's coming in hot like that, it's alarming. But anyway, swam under that. That was my eclipse. Swimming from regular water and then having to swim past in front of two adult men doing urine. So, but yeah, the beach was fun, man. I realized I don't mind the beach once I get there. I'm good. Half my face is really red today. Part of my back's a little squirreled up. But what I don't like is getting to the beach, parking. I don't like. Some guy comes by my window, some Frenchman. He tells me I can have his parking spot. Then he goes and gets in his car for, I'm not joking, 12 minutes, dude. Sits there. I'm waiting, right? Other cars are passing me, getting other spots. It's an extremely small lot right there on Santa Monica. Finally, man, I look over there, dude. I go get a peep at the dude, right? Dude's resting, bro. Eyes closed, resting in his car. The fucking French, man. The fucking French, you know? French me once, shame on me. You won't French me again. I'm not falling for this French shit. So, yeah, so that, you know, Jerry Lee Lewis, we got the eclipse, dealt with the French. Yeah, I don't like just, you know, I don't think that I really so much like dealing with the French. And then God has put a French taste in my mouth, man, and I don't like it. But what else occurred, man, this weekend? Not much, you know. Trying to stuff them cigarettes, you know. And I probably only had yesterday, I think I had 3 or 4 cigarettes, probably 4. Because, you know, a lot of times we'll say something and it's usually that's usually the amount that we don't want to admit to, so we'll try and cheat it. But I probably had 4 cigarettes yesterday. But, man, they just make me feel squirreled up. You know, they make me feel like, I don't know, they make me feel like there's just little mites in my body that aren't happy. That's what they make me feel. They make me feel like something's in me that's unhappy. And that's the drugs that's in them. They put drugs in cigarettes. What else? That's kind of it, man. You know, I'm going to Vancouver next weekend, but not for comedy. I got my fantasy football league coming up. I'm so happy for fantasy football, man. I remember last year when feminism was at a crazy height, you know, when there were, you know, where men were disappearing off the streets and showing back up months later in wigs and, you know, and that, you know, just a dead look in their eyes. You know, women were ripping men off the streets and probably castrating them in basements or doing whatever they were doing, you know. And football season showed up, and it was like the greatest thing that ever happened, just to have a little bit of manhood loose in the world. Like it was something it was okay to talk about when you were a man, you know. Just because, I mean, and I understand, you know, you got to have some waves where, you know, you have to have ebbs and flows of things. But I remember it got so insane that you felt like you couldn't even admit you were a man in the morning. You almost had to be like, hey, you know, happy to be here. I might be a woman. I don't know. We'll see. You know, it's almost like you had to, like, you know, pledge like that. You don't know. I might be a woman in a few years, considering it, just to even walk around. And that's here in Los Angeles I'm talking about. But let's get to some dates, man. I got to some calls. But yeah, I'm going to Vancouver this weekend. I'm excited about getting into Canada. You know, I was just there in Montreal, but I'm excited about getting back. I will be at the Cap City Comedy Club in Austin, and that's September 7th, 8th, and 9th. I will be at Hilarities in Cleveland, September 14th through 17th. And then October, I'll be out here in Los Angeles. November, I'll be in Huntsville, and that is November 16th through the 19th. That's Huntsville, Alabama. So I'm stoked about that. You can check out tickets, everything at theovon.com/tour. I have a bunch of new stand-up comedy bits that I'm going to be putting up. And enjoy the eclipse. You know, I will say enjoy it. Even if you go outside to peek on what it is, I think this is one thing that's going to bring people together, even if it's just for a minute. I mean, I think here in LA we can only see it for a minute and a half. And we only get about 63% of the sun will be eclipsed. I don't think it's going to be like nighttime, but if it is, dude, pull out some nighttime antics. You know what I'm saying? Touch somebody's nuts, dude. Live a little bit. Touch your own nuts. You know, what am I saying? Somebody else's. That could be illegal if you don't know these people. Touch your own nuts, dude. You know what I'm saying? Sneak your hand in your pants. Do something squirrely. Break a rule. You can't break a rule anymore. Break a rule. You know what I'm saying? Scratch your ass a little. You know? Call somebody a cocksucker. You know? Walk outside with somebody from your company that you don't know. Stare at the sun. You don't need glasses. If your boss lets you out to watch the eclipse and they don't require you to have glasses or give you glasses, we're talking about one of the potential greatest class action lawsuits of all time. Look, we live in a lawsuit universe. I hate to say it. I don't like it, but that's what it is. All right? So get out there. If your boss says it's okay, get your eyes open. Tape your eyes open. You know what I'm saying? Get that money. Get that eclipse cash. Stacks on stacks on stacks. Solar stacks. Lunar stacks. Stackadactylus, boy. You know I'm a straight up Stackosaurus Rex. Get that money. All right, so let's get into some calls. I appreciate all the love and support. You can hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. Talk about anything, something you heard today. The new studio is still coming along, you know. I got my assistant on Monday, my boy Ken. He's a producer, too. We do some projects together. Comes over, starts building the studio, leaves. Leaves his tools, everything. Like, okay. Did you get kidnapped? You got kidnapped? You gone? What happened? So, couldn't even really navigate it, but going to try to this week. You know, going to try to finish it up. But we're coming along. The dining room is turned into a studio. So I'm excited. Thank you guys for your support. Listenership's increasing. I'm excited about that. Hit the hotline. Let's talk about some things. Let me know how you feel. You know, do you feel like a war or a natural disaster would help humanity? I know it's extreme. I know it's an extreme thought. But let's think about it. And also, if you hear me talk about something on this podcast and you don't like it, I got a lot of emails last week, right? A lot of emails. It's fine if you don't like it. You know, I probably wouldn't like everything that you shared. But call me and let me know why you don't like it. I'm okay with learning a new perspective. I'm okay with not being right. You know, I'm not here to be right. You know, but I am here to be able to share how I feel. You know, I am here. I'm here all day. I'm gonna be eating Feel Flakes, baby. I open up a big bag of Feel Flakes because you're gonna know how I feel. But I don't have to be right. I'm okay with being wrong. You know, if you want to help me if you want to help show me that I'm wrong, I'm perfectly fine with that. Hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. Let's get into a call or two here. One of the things we asked was how you felt about if the world were ending. What would your thoughts be? What would you do with your time? What would happen last day? Let's check in with some of that.
Hey, what up, Theo? This is JJ calling from the Northwest area.
Okay, we got JJ from the Northwest area. All right, thank you for calling. I hope you're okay. You sound a little bit like something you're hurt or something. I hope you're not hurt. You know, my buddy. And I don't know where the Northwest area sounds super vague, but we're gonna keep listening. God bless you.
I'm saying, what would you do if the world was coming to an end as you know it and you had one day left? Honestly, bro, what I would do is I would just want to be around all my family, you know. I don't go anywhere crazy or do anything crazy. I think, you know, maybe just have a big barbecue with all your family, you know.
Ooh, a big barbecue with all your family. That'd be interesting. I appreciate you calling, brother. Yeah, a big barbecue would be interesting. But then you're going to have to invite everybody over for this. Are they all going to, you know, I guess I should have just we should have decided on how long in advance you knew the world was ending. But let's say, yeah, you got the end of the world barbecue. Wow, that'd be pretty cool. What kind of music would you play? You know, you'd probably have to drop a little bit of Tupac in there. I'd go with probably some, I want to say Kenny Chesney, but I'd even go with some you need some heartfelt Americana country in there too, I think. I would go with maybe some, not Travis Tritt. Who am I thinking of? Maybe, I might throw some Shania in there. You know, turn that thing up. Get the ladies pumping a little bit. You know, I'd throw a little Cupid Shuffle in there because it's family. So you're going to want to have grandma out there hitting that Cupid Shuffle. You know, that love movement. That's beautiful, man. I love watching an old woman dance, dude. There's something beautiful about it. Watching a baby and an old woman dance. There's something beautiful about it, isn't there? You know, I remember I used to stay up at night on the internet looking at videos of seniors dancing and people in community college. I used to watch a lot of community college beauty contests on YouTube. And there's some really good ones on there. You think it's wild, but there are some good ones. And but the videos that would get me the most would be senior citizens dancing with children. There's something special about it. You know, something bringing us all together. But yeah, barbecue. But then you got what if the food is bad? What if you got the shitty potato salad? You sound like you're taking along a lot of responsibility, you know. And I'm going to judge a little bit by how you sound here. I don't know if you're stoned, but you sound, you know. If you call into the hotline, stand up or sit up when you call and talk. This is a conversation, just respect it a little bit in that sense, unless you are on a machine or something, brother. And if that's the case, then, God be good to you. And I hope that if you need a lung or something, hit me up, because I think, I don't know, I don't have good lungs. I got a small esophagus. I got the heart of a lesbian and I got the esophagus of a cat. That's what they told me when I was young, when I first went to the doctor. He said, you have you got the windpipe of a very large cat. The man said there at Oxnard Hospital in New Orleans. Mr. Bob Aaronsman told me that I had the windpipe of a large cat. But yeah, I like that idea, barbecue. But then you're thinking, what is that, potato salad? People are going to get scared then towards the end of the barbecue. I think the first 2 hours are going to be a hit. You're probably going to want to have liquor on hand. People are definitely going to want to drink on the way out. How does it end, though? When you really think about it, You're at the family barbecue, the world's ending, the sun's going down, it's your last sunset. What happens then? Do people get territorial? People get sad? Is the whole family huddled up? What about that pervy uncle? Is he reaching around the huddle? Is he trying to touch a young ass cheek of somebody that's a distant cousin? First cousin is illegal. Second cousin, not illegal. And you can look it up. You can say it's creepy or whatever. Yes, it's creepy, right? It's creepy out here when I got 1,000,000 days to live. But when you're on that last day, how creepy is it if I'm not talking fully sexual, but I'm talking if you wanted to kiss somebody and just see what the feeling was like one last time. Around 11 o'clock, people will be jumping over into the neighbor's yard, probably looking for sex. Do you think that? Or do you think you'd all just sit there and be harmonious? It's really interesting. If you're and you can judge me and say, well, Theo, this is grotesque to think about. That's fine. That's fine if it is a little bit grotesque. But to think about it isn't. To think about it, you're right there. It's the end of the day. It's the party. Some things have gone okay. The potato salad was rancid. Somebody's sick. It's the end of the world. Some of the kids went to bed early. What the fuck? 9-year-old Lawrence, he fell asleep early. What? He doesn't even care. Maybe somebody got too fucked up, passed out. They're missing the end. But you can have somebody that's deviant in the family. They're going to want to jump across and maybe be swingers or do something. Reach out to the neighbors. I'm just saying. I appreciate your call, man. It's interesting to think about what it would really be like at the end of the world. What it would really, 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 really be like. I don't know. Let's take another call. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. It's your boy Tom from rural North Carolina. Just calling for basically if the world were to end today and we knew it, how would I handle that?
All right, this is Tom from rural North Carolina. Tom's called before. He's a frequent caller now. And Tom, I like the way that you call, man, and that's one of the reasons. I know I'm a little bit testy tonight, guys, but, I'm trying not to have a damn cigarette, dude. I would suck a tobacco farmer's cack right now just to see, just to maybe catch a drag. I'm going through that moment. I know it'll only last about 30 seconds, but that's what happens, That's what happens sometimes. And I'm not even a regular, so I can't even imagine what this is like for severe smokers. I cannot even imagine. Wow. But if you smoke and like it, go enjoy a cigarette. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade. But thank you for calling, Tom, from rural North Carolina. That's tobacco country. I can smell it through the speakers here. But thank you for calling about the topic. What would you do, Tom? It's the end of the world. It's your last day. Let's hear it.
So what I would do is I would do what I do. I would go to work just like any other day, go home, see my girl.
Wait. You go to work, dude? That's a company man, bro. You would go to work. Tom, we're talking about the end of the world. You're going to go spend you're going to be the only person at FedEx who's bringing their shit in. Overnight is the best service. There's no overnight. Nobody's coming in, Tom. Nobody's coming in to get their radio fixed or to buy some new software or something. I don't even know where you work. Nobody's coming in to, I mean, maybe if you ran like a horse place, somebody would come in to get a couple of horses, because it's the last day of their lives and they've never done horseback riding. Or if you ran like a roller skating thing, people want to probably come and maybe spend a little bit of time in the rink. But Tom, you're talking about going to work. I don't even know where you work at. It's fascinating though. You're a lifeguard. You're the only fucking dude there. But you're a company man. You're an organized man. You stick with the schedule. That's interesting, Tom. I never thought about that. I think most people would call in. They would be the one day they would be able to call their boss and be like, I quit. Everybody would quit. That would have to be the first thing you would do in the morning. Wake up, quit work. I think by 1 p.m. I think half of the world would be naked. By 1 p.m. I remember an experience I had. I went on this thing called Semester at Sea, and it's like a floating university. And it was a gift. Somebody gifted this to me. I would not have been able to have this experience on my own regard. Just financially, it was interesting. But I remember, so you go around the world on this cruise ship, and you're at sea for 100 days. It's a floating university, right? It's a floating university. And you get to the further you get along, I noticed people started losing clothes. By about day 60, you could go to class without a shirt, and the women would wear bikini tops. And by day 90, I remember being in class in a Speedo, and it was totally okay. It wasn't just like there were a couple of kids that would do it, and the rest of the boys, if they felt, just comfortable enough, they would have no shirt on. And people had wild hairdos, and you just start to develop, you start to get freer and freer. That's what I noticed. Over time, we got freer and freer. And I think if it's the end of the world, that you're going to have that whole experience kind of, just expedited in a day or in the days leading up to it. But I think by 1 p.m., that last day, that most of the world would be probably naked. Just to have that feeling of, what does this feel like? Have I been caged up in my clothes? What kind of existence have I been living that I was kind of forced to live into just by the bumper lanes that were put on the society around me? I don't know. Just interesting thought. But I do remember on that cruise, by the last 10 days, we were in class, just out in some ocean somewhere, and we were in Speedos, and it was totally okay. Everybody was comfortable with it. It was really interesting just how we got almost, just got back to being comfortable in our skin. All right, onward. I'm sorry, Tom. Onward with the rest of your call. Now that your day at work is over, what would you do?
I just do what makes me happy every day. Lifting weights makes me happy. Being with her makes me happy. Just trying to be as happy as possible with the last moments we have. And I would definitely, as sappy and as sentimental as it sounds, I would definitely just sit there and I'd hold her hand as we die.
Wow. Let me think about that. So Tom said he would go to work, he would go to the gym. That's pretty dope, actually. That's commitment. I like that. That part I definitely get. Going to the gym. I just get I am taking my spirit to the end of the line and sticking to my commitments. I like that. And then you'd sit there with your girl and you would hold her hand. I think that's sweet, man. I think you would have people like outside of the deviant uncles and the swingers and the people who, put more of their balls into the sexual court. I think you'd have a lot of people who are lovers. You seem like a lover, Tom, who would probably do that too, who would maybe just sit there with their whole family and hold hands. Maybe play a game or just go around in a circle and tell stories about how you really felt about each other. Because you'd have to get everything off your chest, you'd have to get rid of all the pain and the hurt and all of the love and the affection and the hope and you'd have to get it all out. I mean, I bet a lot of people would be calling people like around 11 a.m. that they always were in love with and afraid to tell them. You'd have a lot of crazy stuff. A lot of phone lines would be down. A lot of crazy memes. The young kids, the millennials would all just be doing memes. The youngest, though, the young millennials, I mean, like 11 years old, they would all just be sending dirt memes to each other and not knowing what to do. But that's interesting. It's interesting you'd sit there because there's something very manly about that. Even though you say that that's sappy, there's something manly about that you're going to be there with this lady that you love and not let her go into oblivion alone, or at least not let her think that she is. And I think there's something still. Chivalry's not dead, even though the world is, huh? Even though the world would be. This is all hypothetical, guys, and I think we're keeping it pretty lighthearted, so this is good, I think these are neat thoughts. All right, let's move onward. We got another call. This one came in from Canada, our neighbors to the north.
Hey, Theo. Jim here.
Hey, Jim.
Calling from Canada. Got a more serious issue here. I think my dog's been sexually abused. What happened was I let someone look after them, and when I got him back, he was acting funny. He wouldn't eat his food no more.
Okay, so this is an interesting call. This is Jim, and he believes that his dog may have been sexually abused. May have been. This isn't a stunt call. I just want to let you guys know that all these calls are real. Onward, he's not eating his food anymore. I can't tell if this is a joke or not. Let's go onward.
He didn't want anyone to touch him. And the thing is, the person who was looking after him is, I've known them to be a sexual deviant in the past. So what should I do? Should I call the police? Like, where do I go from here? Because I don't want my dog being, emotionally scarred from this. So what do you recommend I do? Thanks.
I don't know if you call the police. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't have any suggestions. I've never owned a dog. I got attacked by a bunch of dogs twice. My birthday growing up. Another time I got attacked by some cats. I got attacked by a lot of animals. So I never had a dog, I didn't even know you could pet a dog until I was probably about 11 years old. I didn't know that people had them as pets and kept them in their homes. So what do you do? I mean, I don't know if I would let someone watch my dog if I believe that they have. I mean, how deviant is this person? I mean, if you think they're that deviant, I think you need to think before lending them anything. I don't even think I'd lend that guy a screwdriver. He'd probably try to hide it in his butt. So, letting him watch a dog that you love or whatever, that's crazy to me. And I'm sorry that I'm sorry you did that. But dogs are resilient animals. I'd read about this or call a call a veterinarian. I think I'm the wrong person to call for this, man. But best of luck to you. Okay, let's take another call here. Thank you very much for hitting the hotline. Again, the hotline number is 985-664-9503. Here we go.
Hi, Theo. My name's Kiani Rosario. Love the podcast. Just wanted to ask, how do you deal with, feeling trapped?
Okay. This is Ms. Rosario, and she's asking, how do you deal with feeling trapped?
It could be in anything, in life, work. Just been feeling trapped lately.
Okay, she's been feeling trapped lately. I know her call is kind of low. She said, Theo, how do you deal with feeling trapped, by life, work?
Wanted to know if you had any advice for that.
Wanted to know if I had any advice for that. Thank you for calling, young lady. Our female listenership has been growing, so that's been exciting, and I appreciate the call. Well, I'll say this, because you said, how do you deal with feeling trapped? And I want to say that, it's a feeling. You're feeling trapped. And is that the actuality? Because I'm starting to learn in my life that my feelings aren't reality. My feelings, and sometimes even my feelings are, they usually will tell me that I don't feel good. But the reality is that that's not the case. The reality is that things are better than they feel. The reality is that if I suffer from depression, that sometimes my feelings will just feel bad, even if my life is not that way. So if you're feeling trapped, is that the reality? First, I would just look at that, and this is just a suggestion based on some of my experiences. I would just look at the reality, because your actions are going to be what's real. If you're going to work and you have people around you that care about you and you're taking care of yourself and, all of these things, then those actions sound really good. Those actions sound promising, and those actions sound like you're doing a good job of living for you or for anyone. But if you're feeling trapped, it could just be the feeling. And sometimes what helps get rid of bad feelings is just by noticing the actions that you're taking. It sounds like you're going to work. I don't know what's going on in your life, but if it's good things, then the trappedness could just be a feeling. With that said, have I felt trapped before? Yeah, I feel trapped sometimes by, like when it comes to dating and stuff like that. I feel really trapped when it comes to relationships, and I don't know why. I don't know why, really. I'm actually seeing a therapist now. I'll see her today, actually, right after the eclipse. I'll walk into her office, and she is like a sex and love sort of therapist, but basically she just helps you think. She's a regular therapist, but she kind of specifies in those sorts of worlds, and she can help you think about why you behave or feel the way you do in certain relationships. So maybe if you're really feeling bad, maybe see a therapist if you think that could help. What else? If you're feeling trapped, by life, you could always try changing some things up. And you could also always try just, like a lot of times I remember for years I would wake up and think, man, I know what my life's going to be like today. I got to go to work. I got to do this. And then I'll have to come home, and then I'll have to go to the gym, or then I got to go get groceries, and then I got to remember to, empty the DVR or whatever. But before I even walked out of the front door, I'd already lived my entire day in my head, and I'd already decided that it was mundane and that it was repetitive and that it wasn't going to be enjoyable. And so then that's how my day went. And all day I just felt trapped in this day that I already knew how it was going to go. And things never changed for me because I didn't allow them room to change. I know that sounds bizarre, but in my mind I didn't. Whereas if I would have got up in the morning and said, hey, today I get to go to work. Today, then I get to come home and I get to go to the gym, or I get to hug my, kid or bird or whatever you have, or, or I get to meet the exterminator. He's coming to get the spiders. I get to do these things. I get to live. I get to eat lunch. Instead of, man, I got to eat lunch again at the same place across the street. No, man, I get to eat lunch today? Holy shit. Almost make yourself ignorant in a way so that everything can be a surprise in a way. It's just really about possibility. Because then if you walk out of the door and say, wow, I get to go to work, it just feels different. And then I get to go to the gym. Wow, anything could happen at the gym. Instead of thinking, man, at the gym, I'm going to have to do this weights and this weights and this weights. It's already ruined your workout. It's not exciting. But if you go to the gym and be like, man, I could do anything I want. I get to do whatever. Even if you're just going to do the same shit you always do at the gym, the way you approach it, if you leave possibility there, anything could happen at the gym, I might win a new shirt if there's a raffle, or somebody might buy me a milkshake, or I might get a milkshake after. Who knows? Anything is possible, I might fall in love. Somebody might jerk me off somewhere behind a machine, I might jerk off behind a machine. I mean, those are crazy ideas, but if you leave possibility, then you're walking around with possibility. The world suddenly that you've lived in 1,000,000 days in a row, suddenly it's full of mystery and intrigue and possibility. But those are some thoughts that I have. But if you're really feeling trapped, honey, or I don't mean honey, because that's sometimes belittling, even though I don't think it's belittling. I think it just means like sweet girl, sweet young lady. If you're really feeling trapped, and it continues to feel, it could be some psychological stuff, I don't know. So you might want to maybe talk to a therapist about it. But if not, those are just some things that I do sometimes that help me when I'm not feeling good. And just keep talking to people. Just don't feel trapped by yourself. Just don't feel trapped by yourself. And you're not now. Since you told me, now we're trapped. Whoa, we're in an avalanche, What's going to happen in here? You know, who's going to be the first one to fart in the avalanche? You know? Stupid things, but when you open it up to possibility, even if it's ridiculous, it makes it better than be like, fuck, dang, we're stuck in an avalanche. This is going to suck, you know? We'll probably be dead in 17 days, you know? One of us will have to eat the other one, you know? Boo. So I think just keep some possibility. Maybe that could help you feel better. But I do hope that you feel better, and I appreciate you calling. I appreciate everybody calling. I appreciate the calls. Continue to hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. I have to leave, actually. I got to go do a set at the Comedy Store, the world-famous Comedy Store. I'll be in Vancouver this weekend coming up. If you know anything fun there to do, let me know. I do a destination fantasy football draft every year, and this year we're going to go to Vancouver, so I'm very excited about that. You can hit the store, theovon.com/store, to get both of my albums that are out, to grab a t-shirt, or also we have these beautiful prints that are right behind me. You can see them on the YouTube, and they say, keeping my squad hydrated, and they are, that's a line from one of the albums. I want to thank Sherb, my editor. I want to thank Ken, the videographer. And that's it, man. That's it. And I want to thank you guys for listening to me this week and for joining me. And if you have ideas, things you want to talk about, or you want to hear about, or discussions you want to start, hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. And let's talk about things together, man. I want to talk about what you want to talk about. You know, I don't want this to be just about my ideas. I want to know some of yours, and I'm grateful. And yeah, you guys helped me get through that craving for a cigarette. Wow, thank you. That really helped, man. I don't feel it anymore, so I'm gonna celebrate living, man. You know, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna celebrate living. Hope you have a good eclipse, huh? You gonna see it? Will it be cool? What if it's a dud? I don't think it will be. Dude, it could be. What if it eclipses and then aliens show up? What if aliens show up, dude? And what if, honestly, all they want to do? Suck people's cacks, bro. Wow. Imagine spending, the next couple months playing hide our cocks from aliens. And the women will be pissed because the aliens won't be interested in them, They'll probably blame it on us, some of them, some of the ones who write articles, They'll be like, these guys are hogging all the aliens. We're not hogging them, okay? They're trying to suck our dicks, lady. Cut us some slack. We didn't tell them to come here and do it. They're doing it. You can't be left out because aliens aren't interested in you right now. Gosh, can't we have anything? Can we have aliens? Can't poor white people have aliens? That'd be the coolest if aliens only wanted to blow poor white dudes. Because even though people say, oh, dang, bummer, people would feel left out if aliens weren't chasing them. They would, 100%. It's just how we're built. Celebrate living, man. I'd be naked by 1 p.m., probably jumping over the neighbor's fence, but then I'd come back and hold hands and do the powwow, I think. That's what I would do. But be good to yourselves, man. Take care of yourselves. Be good to yourselves, I bet you deserve it. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Kite, and welcome to Kite Club, a podcast where I'll be sharing thoughts on things like current events, stand-up stories, and 7 ways to pleasure your partner. The answer may shock you. Sometimes I'll interview my friends. Sometimes I won't. And as always, I'll be joined by the voices in my head.
You have 3 new voice messages.
A lot of people are talking about Kite Club. I've been talking about Kite Club for so long, longer than anybody else. So great. Hey, sweetheart, here's the deal. Anyone who doesn't listen to Kite Club is a dodgy bloody wanker. Do you know what I mean?
Hi, I'll take a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry.
Sorry, sir, but our ice cream machine is broken.
No!
I think Tom Hanks just butt-dialed me. Anyway, first rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Second rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Third rule, Like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube, yeah? And yes, don't worry, my Brad Pitt impression will get better.